There's more to Sweden than ABBA and winter depression. There's also snow and ice and miserable weather. Or at least that's what you'd expect. Gillian Kirby suggested in a YouTube comment that I make a more detailed video about Swedish weather and how it changes by month. I'll also talk about the different regions of Sweden, because you definitely won't see the same weather in Kiruna as in Stockholm. So let's get started. You're about to learn more about Swedish weather than you ever wanted to know. Right now it's winter, which means that Sweden is a frozen wasteland with polar bears roaming the streets. Or maybe it isn't, come to think of it. This is Stockholm, which is at a 59 degrees north latitude. It's the same latitude as Irkutsk in Siberia or central Canada. But it's not as cold as central Canada or Siberia, and that's because of the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream brings warm water to Scandinavia, and it keeps Norway's coastline mostly ice-free, for example. And it also warms up Sweden. It's still cold, of course, but it could have been a lot worse. Right now it's a brisk 2 degrees Celsius in Stockholm, or 36 degrees Fahrenheit. It can get colder in winter. -10 or -15 is not unheard of, but Stockholm is in the lower third of Sweden, so the weather is still pretty mild. Up north, like in Kiruna or Abisko, it's a lot colder, and there's a lot more snow. And in Malmö, in the south of Sweden, it's closer to 10 degrees right now, so it's a lot warmer. Sweden basically has 3 major parts. Götaland is the area to the south, Svealand lies in the middle, and Norrland is in the north. And these 3 areas all have pretty different climates, so when you're talking about going to Sweden, check which area you're talking about. Oh, and then there are regional differences even within these areas. Stockholm and Gothenburg are both in Svealand, but it rains a lot more in Gothenburg. And the plains around Linköping, also in Svealand, of course has a different climate than the west coast or the east coast. But in general, it's most important to look at how far up north you'll be traveling, because that's gonna determine the temperature and how much snow you can expect. Winter is problematic in Sweden because there's often a lot of snow and it can be pretty cold. Not super cold, but you still need to think about layers. Swedes often dress in many layers: scarves, undershirts, woolen shirts under the jacket, and so on. And long johns, but you won't need those unless it gets really cold. There's a Swedish saying: "Det finns inget dåligt väder, bara dåliga kläder." It roughly translates to, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. Basically, don't complain about the weather, dress better instead. Well, I don't agree with that. There's definitely such a thing as bad weather, and there's plenty of that in Sweden. Winters can be pretty nice in Sweden, especially if there's a lot of snow, but most of the time you get a lot of half-frozen slush instead, at least in the middle of Sweden. And things don't really get all that much better in spring or autumn. In spring there's more daylight, but there's also more rain. And in autumn things are getting colder and darker, and there's even more rain. It's not as bad as the UK though, and in all honesty, Sweden has a fair amount of quite beautiful days. The thing is that the weather is unpredictable. You can never expect sunshine. You must always be prepared that yesterday's sunny day can be instantly exchanged for a day when it rains cats and dogs. That's another reason for the layered clothing in Sweden. You should be prepared to dress warmly one day and then remove a layer or two the next day. But some people have worse things to worry about than the weather, and that brings me to Aura, this video's sponsor. You've probably heard that TikTok might get banned in the US. It's all because of fear that they might be leaking your personal information to questionable actors. Well, that's already happening, regardless of the potential TikTok ban. There are data brokers online selling anyone's data for just a few bucks to anyone. Big companies with poor security are getting hacked every day, and your personal information is being sold on the dark web, so spammers, scammers, and identity thieves can target you, and they face zero consequences from it. A lot of personal information is publicly available in Sweden. Your name, your birthday, your salary, all of this can be looked up online. But these data brokers are selling a lot more than that. And all of this information can be used to steal your identity and cause unimaginable problems in your life. That's where this video sponsor Aura can help. They will identify data brokers who are selling your information and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Try Aura for a few weeks and you'll stop seeing your information on these sites when you search yourself, and that will also lead to less spam. Aura will also continuously monitor the dark web and alert you if they find any personal information that's being shared, or if anyone tries to use that information to access credit cards or bank accounts. Plus, they'll give you up to $5 million in identity theft insurance if the worst case scenario happens. The Aura app also has a VPN with more than 100 virtual locations as an added bonus. Visit my link aura.com/3starvagabond to try Aura for 14 days for free. Now, let's get back to the video. I mentioned that Sweden has 3 major areas, and that's generally true. But from a meteorological point of view, there's a lot more than just 3. When looking at weather, Sweden is divided into 15 areas by land and 20 by sea, and all of these areas can have pretty differing weather. And there's also a lot of differences when it comes to the seasons in Sweden. The temperature changes a lot, the precipitation changes, but most importantly, the amount of light changes. Right now I'm waiting for spring to arrive, so let's talk about what you can expect from Swedish spring. Winter in Sweden is dark, as in you don't get much sunlight at all. In Stockholm you just get a few hours of daylight during the winter months, and further up north you don't get any daylight at all. Literally. The thing that most people are looking forward to with spring is that the days will become brighter. The darkness can be quite oppressive, maybe not if you're just visiting for a week or two, but after months of it, it weighs on you. So spring is a happy time in Sweden. The weather is unpredictable and there can be snow in April or possibly even May, but people are still happy. Oh, and speaking of snow in April or May, that's true for the middle of Sweden, but if you look further up north, then things are a bit different. It's quite common to go skiing at midsummer in the far north of Sweden. Something that often happens in spring is that there's a week or two of really good weather. We never know when it'll happen, but there's often a short period of April or May that's full of summery sunshine. So if you manage to visit during that time, you definitely want to have a t-shirt instead of a thick jacket. After spring comes summer, at least most years. Summer in Sweden is also unpredictable. Some years it's really hot and sunny, and some years it's cold and rainy. There's a joke in Sweden that Swedish summer is amazing, so make sure you enjoy the entire week of it. But it's not that bad. Swedish summer can be extremely pleasant, and it does last for more than a week. The problem is that you don't know when the sunny months will be. Some Swedes take summer vacation in June, some take it in August, but most people take it in July for historical reasons. Some years you have a really warm and sunny July, but a rainy June. Some years you have a really warm August, but rain all June and July. And one year, 2018, we had a really hot June, July and August. I'm still waiting for another year like that. When I say hot, I mean hot for Sweden, so around 30 degrees Celsius or upwards to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But you can also have summer days of around 12 degrees Celsius or just above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That makes it really difficult to plan for how to dress when visiting Sweden, and difficult to plan your summer vacation. When everyone returns to work after summer, the most common topic is whether or not you managed to catch the sunny days or if you were caught in the rain. So there's a lot of gloating, regret and angry stares at Swedish workplaces throughout all of August. September, October and November are the autumn months in Sweden, and there's a gradual transition during that time. September can be pretty warm in the middle and the southern parts of Sweden, and October can be quite mild too. November is often when you see the first snow, mixed with rainy and sunny days. In general, the autumn season is characterized by more rain, falling leaves, and slowly fading daylight. It's still very pretty to spend time in nature in September and October, but you might want to bring your rain jacket. Other than that, autumn is pretty much a spring in reverse. People get a little bit more gloomy and they start mourning the lack of daylight. Halloween brightens things up a bit, but it's often a pretty difficult season for many people. The summer joy is gone, and now it's half a year of darkness and cold. Winter is coming. It's a time for autumn coats and scarves, for gloves and maybe even hats. And the most difficult decision is when will you put away your autumn coat and bring out your thick winter jacket? Oh, and also, how long will you be able to ride your electric scooter to work? At least that's a very important question to me. This description of Swedish weather is sort of true and sort of not true. There's a lot of regional differences that I haven't covered, and I also haven't talked about the fact that the weather is changing. Climate change is upon us, and 2024 was one of the warmest years in measured Swedish history. I think that it's still beaten by 2020, but that was also a very recent year. It used to be very common to have snow for Christmas in Stockholm, but these days, not that common anymore. The weather is also getting more and more unpredictable. There are more random snowstorms, more random rainstorms, and more random really hot days. But things might change even more in the future. So far, Swedish weather is getting more unpredictable and it's getting warmer, but there might be bigger changes in years to come. If the Gulf Stream changes its course because of global warming, all of Scandinavia will be affected, and not in a good way. Let's put it like this: if you mourn the loss of snow during Christmas, then rejoice, because you might see a lot more snow, and a lot earlier than Christmas. But all of that is in a hypothetical, faraway future, so for now, let's enjoy the sometimes lovely and sometimes miserable weather we have in Sweden. And that's about it. That was everything you never knew that you wanted to know about the weather in Sweden. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.